outside in Somerville, Massachusetts, but it's warm in Kamikaze because you're sitting here with Videodrome. I'm Miracle Max,
I'm Comicazi Mike.
and we're trying hard to get through this brutal winter, but we got some awesome
Hot graphic novels.
Yeah, hot graphic novels to warm you up. Ugh. It's terrible. If we were a radio show, I would just be hitting the soundboard like crazy.
But let's hit the intro.
Yes.
We're counting down our 100 graphic novels you could be reading. No
Awesome.
particular order.
Marvel, DC,
All ages.
and
Independent.
something independent, something cool.
Yes.
Because
Start with
superhero.
all ages.
All ages. Okay. We got Amulet. This is volume 5, Prince of the Elves, but it is up to volume 6 now, I believe.
Yep, that just came out a few months ago.
It's really good. I forget the
In the fall, when it was less cold.
Kibushi, is the writer and artist, I believe, and it's really cool. It's again sort of like a science fantasy sort of take, a journey, Lord of the Rings fantasy. Really cool about a girl, magic amulet, and her gang of pals, which I believe one of them includes some sort of cartoon rabbit. It's really good for your younger readers and
Really, all readers. I enjoy Amulet a lot.
Yeah,
Good quest fantasy.
good. And you should have done the intro for that one. But moving on to other stuff, Blade of the Immortal, totally not for kids.
Blade of the Immortal. I'm not a big manga reader, but I do enjoy.
See, I should have done
Blade
this
of the
one
Immortal.
because
We're mixing it up here on the show. But I have read some Blade of the Immortal, and I love the premise. He has to kill 1,000 evil men before he can rest. So he's immortal.
Yeah.
He cannot die until he accomplishes his task.
And it's a good dark manga along the lines of Lone Wolf and Cub and stuff like that. A little more fantastical than all that. But it's got really cool.
I don't know what's more fantastic than having adventures with a baby on your back. But
that sounds just dangerous.
It does. That's why this is more realistic to me.
But speaking of superheroic babies, the Authority. There's totally a superheroic baby in this.
There is.
I really enjoy the Authority. It's spun out of Stormwatch, which was an Image book, and this is our DC book, even though it's a Wildstorm book. But DC owns all the Wildstorm.
Yeah, we're going to talk about Wildstorm as a whole, but this pretty much kicked off the Wildstorm universe.
Yeah, or at least made it really unique, and the writer comments on that. Mark Miller is by no means a subtle writer, but this is him at his overt hammy finest, where he takes his little messed up Justice League analogs.
Yeah.
They're not messed up, they're just different, and they're really cool. You have Midnighter and Apollo, who are a take on the world's finest. That I'm sure you've heard about. That's just the best. They're two of my favorite characters. And then you have Jack Hawksmoor, God of the Streets. Anyway, they're like the Justice League. They travel around in a cool interdimensional spaceship, but Earth is
bleed.
Yeah, the bleed. So Earth is still their number one priority, though. And this is them going up against all sorts of messed up government spies, interdimensional alien attacks. And when Warren Ellis starts it off with Brian Hitch, and they're really cool, big
cinematic scope.
Widescreen superheroics. So definitely check it out, especially if you like Mark Miller's other stuff.
Yeah,
kick ass. And Frank Quitely. How can I forget Frank Quitely? This is
because he draws so slow that he puts out a book once a year. So,
but I mean, it's still really, really good. And this is again
a lot of the DC's Wildstorm books are really good to check out.
Stuff from guys like Alan Moore, James Robinson. Warren Ellis.
Don't forget Chris Claremont's The Huntsman.
I did forget about that.
But another good book to check out is our Marvel selection. I like to read my Wildstorm books with a big old bottle of whiskey like Tony Stark does. In this story, Demon in a Bottle, the ultimate Iron Man story.
He goes with a couple bottles. I mean,
he's rich.
Yeah.
It was ahead of its time. It was late 70s this came out. It was early John Romita Jr. who went on to superstardom. David Michelinie and Bob Layton are the creative crew, and they put Tony Stark through his paces, and really this story is really about how the excesses of his position impact him. You know, just like you're rich.
It grounded Tony Stark as a character.
It does. I mean,
because I like the notion that all my Marvel heroes have some sort of like weakness.
Of clay. Yeah.
Yeah, and his was originally started off as a war injury, but then moved on into something, a little more commonplace.
Relatable.
Relatable, yeah, that's the word I'm looking for. Not that, people don't get injured in war and you can't relate to that, but this is just another layer of, we gotta get deep when we're talking about Demon in a Bottle, man.
We do.
And and I'm not one to speculate about movies and all TV and all that, but if there's one thing that I'd like them to really translate over into that Marvel Cinematic Universe.
More faithfully than they did in Iron Man 2, where he's doing his dance party.
Yeah, that was hilarious, though, when he's just, like, shooting watermelons and stuff like that. I would love for them to look at the sort of darker side of that lifestyle, because it totally exists.
Mm-hmm. It does.
And Robert Downey Jr. is not a stranger to it, so I think he could bring some cool realism.
Would we call that Iron Man 4 less than 0?
Yes, please.
Read Demon in a Bottle.
Yeah.
You could put it on your subscription list.
Can you? That book came out
well, it's in
40 years ago.
It's in store. You can
you can
subscribe.
You can subscribe to anything, dude. You can subscribe to like a line of toys if you want. You can subscribe to games if there's a big game that you'd like.
Really?
Yeah, and if you want to find some old books and you can't find them, you can come in and just say, "Hey, can you find this for us?" And we got like a whole Death Star's worth of bounty hunters, like Star Destroyer. Sorry, I messed up my Star Wars reference. I'm really sorry. Let's get back to the point. Subscriptions, they're really good and important, and we hope that you come to our store and subscribe.
Fade out.
Hi, I'm Tresha.
And I'm Renee.
And at Comicazi, supporting your local comic shop means discounts for you.
Did you know that by subscribing to just one title, you are granted a 10% discount on all new comics and graphic novels?
We only ask that you stop by once a month to pick up your discounted titles.
We also offer excellent mail order subscriptions that are delivered right to your front door with free shipping included.
So support your local comic shop in a meaningful way.
Become a Comicazi subscriber today.
Welcome back to Comicazi Videodrome's countdown of the top 100 graphic novels in no particular order.
Man, I'm just, 100 graphic novels.
Some heavy lifting. But I did not lift the 2 selections on your side of the table.
Well, this is special. This is a special 100 greatest graphic novels in no particular order because we have 2 independent books, and they're both all ages.
Whoa.
I know.
We are bending our own rules.
Wow.
Reality is malleable.
Yeah, speaking of bending the rules, we'll start with Zot, which is a really great book by Scott McCloud, who did Understanding Comics.
He's a local boy. He's from Lexington, Mass.
Lexington, Mass. That's where I work. It's pretty cool. This is one of his first, big works. This is, his one of his big stories. Whereas Understanding Comics is about comics and whatnot, and that's usually one of his works that everyone's read. This is his, love letter to, Astro Boy and all those types of comics. It's about a girl who has an interdimensional boyfriend. A girl in our world who has an interdimensional boyfriend named Zot, who is the coolest hero on his planet, which is a giant sprawling techno metropolis.
As they are.
And she can cross over into these dimensions, and she kind of loses touch with what's real in her life. And eventually, at some point, again, it's an independent book. It's really good. It's totally cool for kids to read too.
And beloved by our Comicazi book club.
Yeah, it's really good, and on top of that, it talks about some tough stuff that everyone has to deal with at some point in their life. So
rent.
Yeah, I mean, tons of stuff. You'd be surprised. All sorts of relationship advice and what have yous. Okay. What do you got over there?
Well, on my side here, I have books that I have read for this. Walt Simonson's Thor. collected in 5 volumes. In the 80s, Thor was just kind of floundering along after Roy Thomas for a few years.
Yeah.
And Walt Simonson came and kicked this book in the pants.
Yeah.
It is... He brought a lot more Norse mythology into the storylines.
He took out sort of and I like all my Marvel superheroes and all their foibles and, sort of I love sort of the handicappedness of Thor and Donald Blake and...
No pun intended.
Well, either way. I'm not trying to make a pun, I'm just saying.
They were kind of lame.
Cut that out. Anyway, either way, they took that out, and that's where we get sort of Thor as this character on Earth and his love for
Yeah,
Earth.
I mean, these books, Simonson's run resounds so much that the recent Thor movies even, takes from this run.
Oh, yeah. It's really good. And he, again, writer, artist, letterer. He's a really good letterer.
John Workman is the letterer, actually.
Is he?
Yeah, he always letters Simonson stuff, but
What do you know?
it's good. It holds up 30 years later. Fantastic. Let's move to this other book I don't know
The
about.
Eternal Smile. Really good. Also by Gene Yang. It's not also by Gene Yang, but it's also it's by Gene Yang and who's the artist? Derek Kirk Kim. Really good art, and the art actually changes with each chapter. There's 3 chapters. One of them is sort of like a Prince Valiant sort of story. The other one is a knockoff of Donald Duck. He's a frog. He's like a rich frog.
Not Thor Frog.
Not Thor Frog Thunder. And then the last one is sort of like an independent girl on her own.
Okay.
Story,
but not like an interdimensional boyfriend.
No, it does not have an interdimensional boyfriend. But she actually has a Nigerian boyfriend. She has
our dimension.
It's but it's you think it's one of those like email scam things. You think
okay. And all these stories tie together.
They all tie together. It's really strange, and it's kind of metaphysical and really really interesting and hard to describe. I've read it.
So why? I wouldn't read it.
But it's really, really good, and it's worth a reread. And again,
apparently,
yeah, it's good.
Also worth a reread, and I know we both love this.
Also confusing at some points.
It's true. It's steeped in continuity. Crisis on Infinite Earths is our DC Comics selection, and
it's just awesome.
By Crom, this is awesome.
I like this story a lot, despite the fact that it's just dense and kind of almost nonsensical at points. But
that's DC.
Yeah, and this is their first this is one of the first. It is the first big reboot for a universe, so it's definitely worth reading in that sense because nothing else changed, and it had a long lasting effect and change.
It did,
and it took some time for it to sort of really get into high gear. But this is the start of the DC universe that most of us are acquainted to and enjoy.
Yeah, as a big Marvel fan at the time, this book still resonated or reverberated with me with it's not a spoiler now, the death of Barry Allen, who was my favorite DC character as a kid, and just seeing that one issue 8 of this, I'm like, I have to this.
It's really really cool, and it's just so it's such a real death in comics where
it had impact that lasted and meant something.
Yeah, when he this
whole series does.
I don't want to give it away, but I'm sure Tom can show us little pictures. But there's a point where Flash is running so fast his atoms are degrading, and it's an ugly, gruesome death. But it happened, and there was nothing you could do to stop it, and it was tough to read. Same with Supergirl. I mean, that one's right there on the cover. It's a really good story. George Perez.
Deader than Disco.
George Perez, Disco Headband.
Disco Headband. I love Disco Headband, Supergirl. And I was sad when she died.
Were you?
I was.
Yeah, well, nothing truly dies.
No.
I'm getting too deep with these.
You know what doesn't die? Love for comics.
So Videodrome is filmed at Comicazi in Somerville, Massachusetts, and we got awesome stuff. We got new toys, old toys, new comics, old comics, subscriptions, an awesome eBay store. Check us out. We are the best comic book store on the East Coast, bar none.